of our community. We have joining us, as always, on the first Monday of the month, educator, author, activist, and creator of Harlem Liberation School, Brother IJ Taemba. Peace, Brother IJ. Thank you for joining me today, bro.
Peace, good brother. Good to be here, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we're coming off of the heels of Black August and the celebration of the birth of the Right Honorable Marcus Garvey. I don't believe we talked about Marcus Garvey last time. That we talked about Black August, which of course is to highlight and emphasize some of the resistance, Black resistance to systemic white supremacy. But you did a video recently talking about the 5 things you admire and respect about Marcus Garvey. What can you tell us about that video?
Okay, well, I'll probably give a few so I don't bore everybody to death, so we could cover some other things. It was, I believe, Marcus Garvey's 134th or 138th birthday on August 17th that passed, and obviously there's parades in Harlem and all over New York and all over the country and the world. And I just sometimes I like to give my own personal point of view on what a said individual meant to me. Not to say this is the end all be all, but it's representing why I see value in them, to make it a little more personal. And so one of the things I thought was really different about Brother Garvey, because the white historians depict him as arrogant and egocentric, a megalomaniac. And the truth of the matter is, megalomaniacs don't tend to give other people credit. Narcissists don't tend to say, wow, I see great beauty and value in you, and I want to actually emulate or duplicate what you've done. And that's what Brother Garvey did upon reading Up From Slavery, Booker T. Washington's pretty famous autobiography, and looking at the Tuskegee Institute model. They had all their buildings were built by students. Everything on that campus at that time was built by students. The bricks were made by students. Garvey was like immensely blown away by this kind of self-reliant, nationalist-oriented aspect of Tuskegee Institute. So when he read Booker T. Washington's biography, he got in touch with him. He wrote him correspondence to say, man, I love what you're doing. I'd like to learn more. I'd like to get a tour. And his plan was to take Washington's Tuskegee Institute model and bring it back to Jamaica and create a school for blacks in Jamaica modeled on Tuskegee Institute. Of course, Washington invited him to come through, but by the time Garvey got to the United States, Booker T. Washington died several months earlier. We're not talking about planes and all that family. He's getting on ships to come to America. It took time. So that's the first thing. Today, it's sometimes we get very caught up in the things we're doing, and we're not as supportive, or we tout what we're doing sometimes, but we don't sometimes see beauty and value and promote and support what other brothers and sisters are doing in the country or the world. So I think that makes him stand out to me. And then another thing was his understanding of the power of propaganda. By trade, Garvey was a printer, a master printer at a young age. So he knew how to put newspapers together and things of that nature. And he understood the power of imagery. He also understood that simply going about things in a scholarly way, but did you know that this and this and that and this and that? For our people, you got to hit them in the heart and mind. You got to make a connection. So he understood the importance of how propaganda helps you to capture the hearts and minds of the people, which is one of the reasons why he had one of the broadest, largest, probably one of the most effective organizations in our history, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, is because he understood if you get people to see the big picture, all the specifics can come in later, right? But you gotta get them to see why this is important, why it should get their attention, why they should put their money, pool their money together, why they should join the organization. And he was a master of propaganda. The Negro world, you look at the advertisements, the language used, the political cartoons that were in it, his speeches, his vivid speeches, his mottos, up you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. What man has done, man can do. I mean, Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. He understood the power of language and imagery. And that's why he had a flag. It's another thing to get black people to see, start looking at themselves not as this loose assemblage of people that just happen to live in the same neighborhood, but as a nation of people. And what better way to do that? He wrote a flag, he wrote songs, the brother wrote hymnals for church. I mean, the brother was really deep. All of the things he did in the vein of propaganda. And then lastly, man, I'm just going to give this third one. He had the ability to articulate a theory, nationalism, Pan-Africanism. But unlike a lot of people then and today, he knew how to take the theory and operationalize that theory. So he didn't like the fact that our beautiful black girls was out here playing with white dolls, right? He didn't like that at all. He felt that was propaganda from the white man, and that our little girls would be coming up wanting their hair to look white, their skin to look white. Was he right? He was right. You could tell by all the bleaching creams and all that stuff that's going on then and now, right? So he didn't just get upset about it. He wrote about it in the Negro world. He talked about it in his speeches and his writings. And then he created a black doll manufacturing company in Harlem. See, so he covers the theory. He shows the people, he critiques this practice and the potential damage of it to our children, but he also now creates the capacity to change the dynamic by introducing black dolls. See, now think about all the leaders that you know of, Brother Ra, or our listening audience, who have a critique of something, but do nothing to actually address it in real time, in real space. They talk about who we dating, our educational system, what our people need or don't have, but they're not putting nothing there, right? So yes, the theory is good. That's better than nothing. But at the end of the day, if you got a critique of education, build schools, write curriculum, create rites of passage programs. You don't like the direction that our young ones are going in, put something there to reorient their minds. You think economy is a problem? Create cooperative business. So in other words, those there's two other things, but those are three things that set him apart from most people in our history. Absolutely.
Yeah, you said a few things in there. Bruce Lee once said, knowing is not enough. You must be willing to apply. And I think Garvey was one person that mastered this concept of not just knowing and giving speeches, but being willing to apply what you know. I think it's safe to say, if you study the history of Malcolm X, the split between him and the Nation of Islam began when he was trying to get involved in engage in some activism. And the Nation of Islam was kind of pulling back. They had all this theory about who the oppressor was and who the devil was and who the skunk of the earth was, but they weren't necessarily willing to take an active role and engage in activism. The great Maulana Karenga said that you have to, as it relates to the Nguzo Saba, you have to make the principles practice. It's not just something that we, elaborate and pontificate on and have these nice flowery conversations about. You have to be willing to do something hands-on. And as it relates to do for self, you have now two movements of Black people in America. You have the integration movement and you have the independence movement. Marcus Garvey and the UNIA obviously was part of the independence movement. But what are your thoughts on this idea that there are two movements of Black people in America? One looking for integration and another one looking for independence. Is that accurate from your vantage point?
Well, definitely to tie it into Garvey, That's another thing that made him stand apart. This is important. I want to hit on this with Garvey. He was a nation builder. We have a lot of people around and had a lot of people then that were great, right? But their whole impetus was to validate themselves to white people, to show that we're just as good. We created things. We did things in history too. Some of our first great historians were vindicationists or contributionist scholars. They were great and we loved them, and I would never speak against them, but their whole point was to show white people we did things in antiquity too. Garvey had a slightly different, his thing wasn't really to appease white folk. It was more to point us towards nationhood and self-determination. Whereas you had other scholars of that time and now who are more integrationists. You know, certainly not the particular direction I'm going in. I'm a nationalist, Pan-Africanist. I see us as a nation. We may not understand that yet. We may not agree on it yet, but we have the language, the customs, all types of what we call Africanisms, leftover practices and customs from Africa that tie us together. And so do we want to fight on their plantations? Do we want to constantly be protesting with white people for our whole existence here? Or at some point, do we want to say, yeah, we got to fight the police and all these different things, but how about getting some land and some territory and being self-governing for ourselves? You know, if we're going to fight, let's fight as a nation of people with a military and emergency organizations and law enforcement and institutions, you know. So that's where he was going. And if you look at the Black Power movement, the Black Arts movement, they are parroting what Garvey was saying in the 1920s. Black arts talking about we need our own images. What did Garvey say? We need to canonize our own saints, create our own heroes and sheroes. He wrote his own songs. He wrote prayers. He wrote hymnals. This guy was really amazing. I don't know if people like really understand. And look, he had the black, he said we need to do international trade, Brother Ra. So did he just say that? He creates a shipping company. Like, people really need to really see that. That separates decent and pretty good leaders from exceptional leaders. Exemplary is that they have the theory and they create a mechanism to bring that theory into practice, you know. So the Black shipping, Black Star shipping line. He also had the Legion, the Black Legion, the Brothers. That's a precursor to the Fruit of Islam.
That's right.
He also had the nurses. So notice he's covering something for the men, something for the women, and he also had parades, propaganda. So he's putting all that on display. And if you look at the documentaries, you'll see people that are now elders who are saying, man, I was a little kid and I used to see those parades on 135th Street and the men with their uniforms and the sisters in their uniforms, and it had an effect on them in terms of saying, I'm proud to be Black. I want to get involved in an organization like that. So speaking to your question, you know, I fall on the side of being a nationalist and Pan-African. So I'm not an integrationist. Let me just start there and say that. Never have been. To my knowledge. Maybe in another life. I don't know. But so I tend to fall. So yes, I'm biased because that's my political orientation. Integrationists, the part about them that we should appreciate is they're saying we died here, blood, sweat, and tears, we invested, we fought, we did this and that. So we deserve to benefit from whatever comes through this country, the good. And that's right, exact. We pay taxes, so whether your kid is in public school or not, you got the right to say, yo, this is what I want to see in public schools. We should take those positions. But this whole idea of doing something to appease white folk, to prove we're human and we're just as good as them, or to make America great at all, those things don't miss me a little bit. So I don't know if I answered your question.
You know, you good. Now in the Garvey movement, you talked about the impact and the influence that the Garvey movement had on subsequent organizations, not the least of which was the Nation of Islam, who put together lessons so that they can teach the members of the organization. I have here with me Marcus Garvey, Message to the People, Course of African Philosophy. This was put together by Tony Martin. Salute to him. He's an ancestor now. But this idea of studying lessons within the organization is also something that came out of the Garvey movement that a lot of people don't talk about. Garveyism, you're a resident of Harlem. Garveyism, should that be considered part of the Harlem Renaissance as we look back on that history?
Yeah, but I think most historians put that more in the new Negro movement. But yeah, it would be more of the radical side of the Harlem Renaissance, for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. And matter of fact, I think he had, I think Claude McKay, who was very important to the Harlem Renaissance, wrote for the Negro world. So Garvey also was able to, just like Brother Malcolm did with the Nation, when it was called Muhammad Speaks, their newspaper, he was able to pull some top-notch black intellectuals who weren't necessarily in the Nation of Islam to write for their paper, which was a brilliant move. Garvey did that many decades before. Yep.
Yeah, so the title of today's talk is The Importance of Investing in Education. And as long as we're talking about Marcus Garvey and Black August, we're talking about Black or an African-centered education. I had on with me a couple of weeks ago Bernard Creamer. He wrote a book called Who Stole the Soul? The Weaponization of Hip Hop. And because he was an educator, I had pitched the question to him. I said, a Black child can graduate from high school with a diploma. And at that point, they will know everyone else's history and culture and not know their own history and culture. And somehow we call that getting an education. I say a Black child needs an education that affirms them and gives them confidence. How would you respond to that? Is that accurate to say that?
Education is supposed to give you the foundational knowledge you need to navigate the society you're in successfully. So let's start there with just a real basic definition. So if you look at, and we could do a longitudinal study, look at your parents, look at their parents, look at your uncles and their siblings and see to what degree are their lives reflective in a good way of the education they received. Are they able to choose different professions that they're actually interested in? Are they able to start their own businesses? Do they have pride and confidence in themselves and their ability? Yeah. And if you could look at that, you could do an informal study. You could say, wow, uncle's unemployed. This one can't find a job. This one can't create their own job, right? Then you're going to start to see that part of not the whole reason, because there's capitalism at play, there's other forces going on, where even people with great educations, right, struggle in this economy. So there's other forces. But you'll see, if you look at your own family generations, the education has been woefully insufficient. In fact, they don't graduate with a full understanding of American history, let alone, and European history, let alone African history. It's very disjointed. That's because many of the teachers themselves have been miseducated, right? So we got to come back to what Paulo Freire talks about in terms of pedagogy, or this art of educating. What does that encompass? What's curriculum supposed to be like? What's education supposed to do? And he basically said it's either supposed to set you up to be self-sufficient and self-reliant, or set you up to conform to someone else's national principles, right? So we know that our education system has not, when I say let me rephrase that. We know that the American educational system has not set us up to be self-reliant, because if it did, our whole discussion every 4 years wouldn't be elections.
Yeah.
Which person should we choose? Well, this is the lesser of two. Like, if that's your whole discussion, that means that your educational system did a good job of teaching you to conform, because we're using tools that they created for their society. Now, yes, we're colonized in this United States of America. So yes, there's times we have to make some compromised decisions. The money we use got white people faces on it. I mean, you know, the colleges we go to, white or black, were often created by white people for their interests. So we make these compromise decisions. But education, if you go back to ancient Africa, what would their educational system be like? Well, what did you have to do? You had to hunt, you had to skin animals, you had to know how to craft them into clothing, you had to know how to build your home, you had to know how to defend yourself. So those were critical components of their educational systems. They may not have been in classrooms with seats and desks, but they had people in charge of teaching, particularly the male youth in certain respects, how to protect, how to farm, how to design their clothing, all these things. So if your educational system, after you complete what they call the compulsory, the mandatory parts of it, after you complete it, so in America it's K through 12. You finish 12 years or more and you don't understand technology, don't know how to use it, it failed you. You don't know how to watch a news report and they say Yugoslavia or they mention in countries, you don't have any clue of where those countries are located and what the people look like in those countries, or maybe even how to research and get accurate information on those questions, your education failed you. If you're walking around here thinking, I got to get my skin as light and white and bright as possible, your education failed you. If you're thinking that white people are the standard of beauty and excellence in education and scholarship and culture, and that your people created nothing to the world, we were primitive, running around with bones in our noses and all types of crazy stuff and eating people, putting them in pots and boiling them and eating them, your education has failed you. This is, so we can do this very practically. And a lot of our people, I'm being extreme to make a point, but a lot of our people, if you could hypnotize them, Brother Ra, they front and they talk a good game about this and that. But if you could hypnotize a lot of our people, do you think white people are prettier than you? Yes.
No.
Do you think white people are better than you? Yes. Do you think that we'll ever be free, that we can ever win, that we can beat them? No. You get it, the truth. If you could strip that subconscious defense mechanism we have and make people tell the truth, I wager to say many of us, disappointingly, would give answers that would be highly representative of self-loathing, that we really don't love ourselves, that we really are deeply insecure, that we look to other people for validation, which explains the drug usage, the alcohol usage, the gotta party all the time usage, all the moving in frivolous directions, not spending our time and money wisely, not associating with people that's going to elevate us. You see, all of that can be partially explained because if you don't love yourself, brother, you know this. If you don't love yourself, you don't care whose company you're in. You let anybody have your time. You put your money into any crazy venture. I'm not going to get into that, but we all know about crazy financial ventures, don't we? People promising us stuff for 20 years, not producing it, and you still giving them money. See, right. That comes from a people who have problems with self-value, because when you value yourself, you're going to say, man, I don't have a whole lot of money. I work hard for this money. So I'm going to be very judicious and selective about where I invested. And if I sniff and it ain't smelling right, if I go in the background and I see lies and dishonesty and deception, I'm not putting no money into that. But the fact that we do this for 2 decades, despite all factors, all the truth coming out, it's more than just con artists getting on them. That says something about what? Us. Right? So that's the thing. So the educational system plays a part in all of that. We live in a generation, Brother Ra, where we're fortunate, where we come out of Black Power. I'm born in 68. So this is Black Power movement. This is the heels of civil rights. So now people are calling for Umoja Shulays, unity schools, liberation schools, African-centered education. But if you was born in the 30s, 40s, you know, you didn't have that exposure. We're lucky that we have those things. You know, that so we have this generation and the one immediately following us will have a greater propensity to say I'm black and proud. Africa wasn't a continent of savages. You'll have more of that, but even in our generations, we still got people that's dealing with they gotta have their hair a certain way, or they gotta wear certain clothing. You know, there's even a thing of people don't want to have African names, change their names to African names because they'll be discriminated against. And the study proves that to be right. If your name is AGYEI'S versus Clifton Jones, you're gonna have you're gonna have a tougher time.
Right.
So yeah, the education system is key, but the key things because school is starting I think this upcoming week for most people. Some people in the South, I think, may still have started already. But there are some things I did want to quickly go through real quick. And that is that those of us in the United States, students in, let's say, K through 12th grade are receiving a formal form of education, because you can have an informal education where you never go to classrooms, but you watch documentaries, you talk to elders, you go to events, you read on your own, right? But in terms of a formal sense, K through 12, it's United States formal educational system, it's foundational system. And the presumption is you're getting the basics of what you need in math and science and reading and writing, history, and things of that nature. But the other thing is that every grade our students go to, Brother Ra, they're creating historical records and impressions that are going to follow them throughout their lives. So I'm talking about your teacher writes a recommendation letter, that's in the file. You do community service, you're involved in some school organization, that's in your file. Your grades, that's in your file. The teacher comments on those report cards, that's in the file. Any awards you won, perfect attendance, valedictorian, whatever, that's in the file. So when you think about just those 2 points, that means we as parents, community members, activists have to get our kids to understand whether you in the white man's public education school system, or you're in an African-centered school system, or you're in a Catholic school system, you got to apply yourself and aspire to be the best you can be, regardless of what school you're in, right? And so I wanted to, and I also need people to know, and you look at the people who led revolutions throughout our history, right? I want you to look at their backgrounds. What did many of them have in common? They tended to be literate. They may not have had no big degree on a plantation, but you're going to notice those who were literate had an edge and tended to lead. Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser, they were all literate. Why? Why does that make sense? There's a correlation. They were able to access ideas, read and understand concepts that others couldn't, and they were able, therefore, to explain things to the rest of our folk on the plantation, whether they were in the field or the house, right? So that literacy thing, that understanding the world around you, is very important, and that ain't white. We were doing that in Africa before white people were in existence, just to be clear, right? That's not white. Being smart ain't white, family, right? So just a few things that we got to really get our kids to understand, because I know they into the dances on the TikTok and poking their lips out and taking the selfies and all this stuff. I understand. We was all kids, fine. But help them really appreciate that none of that shit is going to pay your bills, is going to teach your kids nothing of value, is going to keep your body safe, is going to protect your community. Get their minds oriented on a time for play and a time for business. When we in school, it's both. You got to play certain games. You got to move a certain way, but you got to take care of your business, or you are actually participating in your own self-destruction, right? So here's a few things we could do. Number one, most kids go to school, they go through their classes, and they don't open that book up in math unless they got math homework or unless they're in math class. Can't win like that. You got to study this is going to sound crazy, but this is what good school students do. You have to study every subject every day. So what do I mean? It means that every time you come home from school, and even on the weekend, how many classes? You got 5 classes? Okay. 30 minutes. When you come home from school, whether you got homework in that class or not, whether you got a test coming up or not, 30 minutes for math, 30 minutes for science, 30 minutes for social studies, 30 minutes for English. Why? Because the more consistently that you're studying and reviewing, the more your mind will remember and retain that information. When you do this, I don't have homework in math, so I'm not even going to open my math book. Nope. You're going to be B and C student and maybe D. If you want to be the top, and more importantly, to understand these concepts, family, right? So that when you're older and it says, these pants are 30% off, that without using a calculator, or it's 25% off, or it's 10% off, without using a calculator, you know, if this is the price and it's 25% off, I divide it by 4. Boom. If it's 30 or 33% off, you know, I divide whatever the price is by 3. Boom. And whatever that sum is, I subtract from the total. You know it instantly. You don't need a calculator. It means you're not going to get jerked. People are not going to be able to rob you, right? You can make these quick mental decisions. Just giving a basic example. 30 minutes for every subject every day. If you got 5 subjects, family, that's 150 minutes. That's a little over. Yeah, that's really not long, family. 100 of a whole day. So even on a Saturday, you sit around playing games, talking on the phone, take 150 minutes of 24 hours and go over your stuff. Go over that stuff. Keep it in your head. Another thing that I would recommend is get organized. Organized people are going to be healthier, more fulfilled. They're not going to be losing shit all the time. They're going to be late because they're not looking around. Where's my this? Where's my that? Right? They're going to be on time to work, on time to school. They're not going to miss out on things that people who are always late and disorganized will miss out on. And people who are disorganized will always be behind. What happened? Because they came late. They're getting, what did I miss? Because you're late, right?
Right.
Where's my stuff? I can't find, because you're disorganized. Teach your kids to be organized. This means they should have a schedule for their day. Their day shouldn't be loosey-goosey. I'm just going to get up, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to do whatever. They say, okay, what's your schedule before school? What things do you do every morning before you go to school? What things do you do where your school day is pretty much set for you? After school, when we started our school, Knowledge and Power Preparatory Academy, one of the first questions we put on our interview for parents and kids was, describe your schedule after school. And the parents and kids be like, what do you mean? See? Black and brown, what do you mean? What does your child do? And we want to hear it from the child, not you. We want the child to tell us when they get home from school, between the time they get home and the time they go to bed, what do they do? And you'd be very surprised at the answers. I'll play games, eat some snacks, I go outside and play, talk to my friends. Well, do you do any homework? Oh, yeah. We do you do the homework. And okay, what times? Give me now, when do you do everything? And this is what we noticed over time. When we went back to those original interviews and we looked at the valedictorians, the salutatorians, the ones with perfect attendance, the ones that most improved, do all those good things we want to hear about our kids in school, almost without exception, these were kids that had a schedule. These were kids that when they came home, they know, oh, homework first. We're gonna talk about school. We're gonna catch up. Da da da. Homework first. You ain't looking at a game. You ain't looking at a comic book. You ain't calling nobody. You ain't on no phone, no TV. Boom. Did the homework. Then they had a schedule. They had time to have a snack. They had time to chill. They had time to play the game. They had time to talk to the. You understand? That schedule is very important. It's teaching them something that successful and empowered adults do in adulthood, which is what? Organize their day. It's the same with adults. Hey man, what you doing today? I don't know. I'm gonna figure it out. Okay, not judging. People got a right to do what they want. But if you talk to people that got stuff going on, stuff popping, or just about to get stuff popping, I can guarantee you they could tell you what they doing with their day. They could tell you, and some could tell you almost by time what they're doing with their day. Oh, I got my exercise. Oh, what do you do during the course of your day? Oh, I do my exercise. I do my morning devotional to set my day up right. I meditate. I do this. I get my little lunch in. They could tell you. And other people be looking at them like, man, you crazy. Now, they're not crazy, fam. They're going back to our original culture. Where our people understood you don't build great civilizations disorganized, family. I mean, just think about that. Workers got to know what time they got to be there. Each worker got to know what's their particular responsibility. Each worker has to be trained in their particular responsibility. There has to be somebody that organizes it. They got to know where they're going, how long they're going to be there. They got to know math, right, to be able to move those huge blocks from the quarry. They got to know math to cut them with precision. They got to know math to place them with great precision. Geometry. That takes organization. This is why the 5%ers did a major thing for us when they had an expression, be right and exact. I love that expression. I use it to this day. Right and exact. Precision, right? Knowing what it is. Not just this is what I think, knowing it. We want to build civilization. We don't just want to have a good life. We want our people to benefit from a civilization. You feel me, Brother Ra?
Most definitely.
Like, why can't we think like, I want not just a nation, I actually want to be part of a civilization. Well, it's a whole different mentality. And see, this comes from the things that we teach our kids young. Identify your weak areas immediately. The first week of school, second week of school, you're going to know, I'm not getting this math. I'm terrible with the vocabulary. I don't like this subject. Immediately, and address them. So this now goes into communicating honestly and effectively with their parents and their teachers. Their parents need to know what are their worries, what are their fears, is somebody bullying them, how is the school lunch, are the teachers nice, kind, and do they know what they're talking about, are they mean and punitive? The parents need to know it immediately. The teachers need to know where the kids are struggling immediately. Where a lot of our students do is we'll struggle for weeks and weeks and weeks, getting further and further behind. Now the tests come, we do terrible in the test. Now we got grades that don't change now, right? When in the first 2 weeks, they could have said to mom and dad, I'm really struggling with the math. I don't get it. And the parent can advocate and say, okay, we're going to sit with the teacher. We're going to see if we can get extra work. We're going to get you an after school, program, something. So communicating with the teachers and your parents, most importantly, honestly. Kids have a way of, and I noticed being in schools for years, man. You give them flyers or letters to go home, and it may be, come to this parent, teacher, whatever. Come, we're doing a workshop on this, whatever. And the kids leave it in their bag, sometimes innocently, because they're what? Disorganized. Or they do it maliciously because they know that this letter is saying that they have missed so-and-so days of school or they're failing. So they keep it from the parent. And what I want to suggest to the kids, man, is the honesty is important. Even when you're doing bad, even when the letter is saying something that's not good, you got to share that with your parents. It's going to build trust, and they'll be in a position to help you. A lot of times the kids worrying about, getting beat up or punished. But that type of honest relationship with your parents will prevent your parents hearing some terrible news, and now it's too late for them to do anything. Like, oh, you got to repeat a grade. Why? The parent thought their kid was going to school every day. They didn't know, because the kid was ditching school and hanging out. But the school was sending them correspondence, right, that they didn't get. So those would be some of the things. Be organized. Know where your belongings are. Have a set place for your book bag, your keys, your phone, those critical things. Have a folder for your homework versus your classwork. Have a folder for announcements to your parents. So when you get home, boom, you got a folder. You take it out, put it right on the kitchen table or wherever. Those would be the things that I would probably highlight, because we don't have a whole lot of time. So those would be some of the key things I would highlight. And I also want to say, Brother Rob, I'm revising right now a book that will go into these things with 10 things I'm suggesting in a lot more detail. It'll be an ebook available on my online store that I'll have up probably in 2 days. I'll have it up, because the schools here starts, I think, on the 4th.
Okay, so we got Cheryl Hudat in the chat, and I want to come back to something you just touched on. She said, knowing your enemy, according to Sun Tzu. Now, this is coming from The Art of War, which I know you have. Sun Tzu said, if you know your enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Then he went on to say, if you know neither your enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. She says, know thyself first. Then she says, external education is a tool used to navigate in common area. What is learned at home education is on a whole different level. It's what makes or breaks a people. A house divided will fall. Now, that leads into the next question I want to ask you, and it touches on something you said. You started Harlem Liberation School. In certain parts of the city of Philadelphia, Black children in the Black schools are at 0% achievement. I was a student, went through the public school education as a Black child. I know there was no connection between me and the white female students, female teachers that I had, because they just couldn't connect with me culturally. And they had a very low expectation of Black boys. So as it relates to educating your children yourself, I say as a people, we can't do any worse than the public school. You can't do worse than 0%. So you may as well try. But now here's the thing, Brother Ajay, and this is going into something that you said. A lot of parents put their child in school and they leave the education of the child entirely up to the school. They don't take an active role in it. And so I was watching with my family recently an episode of Everybody Hates Chris. And he had failed math. And he had to he maybe failed a test. And he had to have his parents sign the test or whatever. Either way, he's trying to keep it from the parents. Before the end of the episode, they all found out that he failed math. And they blamed him. And I'm looking at this as a person that is into this concept of educating your children yourself. And I'm saying, if the child fails math, that's not the child's fault. That's the teacher's fault and the parent's fault. How do you blame the child? And I say, if the child is failing, the adults around that child failed the child. And so,
Absolutely.
And so this concept of spending more time, like you're saying, you got to be more organized. Asian children, there's a stereotype that Asian children are smarter than Black children. Asian children are not smarter. They just spend more time on the academics. So Black children spend more time on social media than any other demographic. They spend more time watching television than any other demographic. The Asian children are not spending time on entertainment like that. They're doing some of these extra things that you talked about. But the idea that we put too much responsibility for the education of our children in the hands of the public school. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can answer that from a very personal point of view. So when I was a young dad, right? I'm pretty much right. This is right maybe 2 years before I go off to get my first master's degree, go to grad school. And I got this little baby named Nubia, right? I'm reading stuff like Awakening the Genius of Black Children, The Developmental Psychology of the Black Child by Amos Wilson. I'm reading Jawanza Kunjufu. So already I'm formulating kind of a general basic understanding of how I need to approach the education of my child, right? So the first thing that I did was make sure that I had shapes, colors, numbers, alphabets, and a basic world map that showed the continents and the oceans. And I went over that with Nubia every morning. Even when I started grad school, before I had my first class, we sat down and we went over that, right? I actually had a tape. I wish I could find it of when she was 3. And I was doing like a, kind of like, almost like a 5% type of joint. I was like, who's the original man, Nubia, and woman? And she's there saying the original man and woman is the African man and woman. So, well, what is Africa called, Nubia? Africa is a continent. Africa is the second largest continent. What's the first largest? Asia. You know, she's breaking it down. Who was Marcus Garvey, Nubia? I had a tape of her doing this. Nice. And I played it for my boy Scott, and it blew his mind. She was 3 years old. Okay, wow. Let's fast forward, right? This is maybe an hour a day in the morning for years. Let's fast forward. Same thing with her daughter, her sister Zakiya. Same thing with Zakiya. Now, once we put them in school, in 8th grade, Nubia's the valedictorian of the 8th grade. 4 years later, her sister Zakiya is valedictorian of the 8th grade in the same school.
Nice. People
say, wow, that's really both of them? 4 years apart? That's not a fluke.
Right.
I said, no, that's a system. They're not better than any other black kid in the school, man. But they had a culture, and this is what I want to get to. This is about culture, Brother Ra. We try to escape it. We try to ignore it. Culture. We dismiss it. But when you look at your kids and other people in your family's kids, and you see their kids seem to be doing A, B, and C, they going here and there, they're accomplishing this. And you look at him and you say, I don't see that. It's not that those kids are any better, because they're not. It's that they had a culture that gave them what? They felt safe and protected. They could express themselves as long as they weren't disrespectful. They got exercise. They ate right. The conversations weren't about, do you think these boots look better or those? The conversation was, how if we come from people who were in Africa creating civilizations, and you look down at all these different stats, and it seems like we're low on all these good stats. What do you account for that? Why do you think that is? Then you hear your little kid saying, what does that tell you? They say, well, it means that we're not worse off than nobody. They did something to us. If we were here, now we're here. That means that's a result of experiences we went through. See the conversation? We're not at the family get together saying, show me the latest dance.
Right.
We at the family get together talking about, what did you think? What do you think about this Umar Johnson controversy? What lessons do we have to learn from that? Would you give him money or not? Why? Right? The conversation, and it could be just as fun, and you can still do a little TikTok dance, but that's not the priority. So culture creates a system of priorities. What are we willing to live for? What are we willing to die trying to attain? And in rare cases, what are we willing to kill for? That comes from your culture. So if you teach a people to think that pleasure seeking should be their number one occupation, you got them. They're going to be drunkards, dope addicts, people who with low initiative, laying around. You teach them the wrong cosmology, that there's some external force, that if you please it and follow its dictates, it's going to give you what you want. You're going to have a lot of people misled, good brother. Misled, as opposed to an African system that taught that this deity is in you. The deity is in you. And when you pray, you are in essence speaking to the deity in you. That this deity has invested in all of us the ability to what? Build, destroy, create. expand, reproduce, just like it. And that this energy, when you get people thinking all that wrong, you can predictably know, save a miracle, that you're gonna have what the 5% calls the 85%. Deaf, dumb, and blind, easy to lead in the wrong direction, almost impossible to lead in the right direction. Poison animal eaters pray to a God they know not what. You see, it's predictable. So the fact that we have black people in our families, Brother Rob, that are trying to do something with their lives, build businesses, help the people, eat right, that this is a miracle, Brother Rob. I don't know if people understand. If you're a black man and woman and you got your mind halfway decent and you're trying to do things good for the community, you are a walking enigma. You are not supposed to exist because of all these things they put us through. You see, that's education. And when we talk about Asian people, the Asian people were coming to Africa. Let's be clear, right? You can look at all the old pictures. You can look at them and see they call them black Chinese, black whatever. They look just like me and you. Straight music, right? So this comes down to, what do you teach? I just ran into the my daughter's grandmother on her mother's side, and we're talking to one of my teachers. My Jegnas is there. We was this African drumming circle in Harlem, and she was bragging. She said, "Oh yeah, Nubia, 3-4 years old. Everybody be at the cookout. We have a family get together on their side of the family. She'd be with a book." Now, that comes from a culture. She could have genius potential, but if the parents have a culture of, anything goes, no structure, you can stay up as late as you want, eat whatever you want, say whatever you want, dress however you want, listen to whatever you want, then what we're doing is retarding her. That's culture. That's parents saying, "No, I don't want." Listen, and sometimes you'll fight with your own people, man, over this. Your own people. There's a movie called They Live. Very quickly, it's science fiction, but there was these glasses. A small group of people in a church had these glasses. When you put them on, you can see the truth. Right? This white boy found them, and he's putting glasses on. He's looking at the billboards, Ra, and instead of a vacation, when he puts the glasses on, it's like, obey, comply, spend your money. When you take them off, it looks like a regular magazine. So he's trying to get this black man to put the glasses on. A 10-minute fight scene, longest fight scene in movie history. Straight facts. The black man does not want to see the truth. He's fighting. They fight, brother, for like 10 whole minutes. And finally, completely exhausted, the white dude now just takes glasses and puts it on him. And now he's like, wow. But that's what it's like for us. So when Nubia's a kid or little, what am I telling the grandparents, everybody? Don't you send no white dolls over here. Don't you send nothing with no white faces and none of that. And we want educational stuff. It could be fun stuff, but not with their images on it. We want to get out the bud now. We don't want them coming up thinking they got to look like other people or that they're lacking something. Because once a kid is insecure, oh man, bro, they're open to a lot of ugly things,
Yeah.
So it's about the culture. You got to set the culture right.
Yeah, you touched on your 5% nation of gods and earths. In the supreme mathematics, number 8 is build and destroy. And so the question becomes, what are we willing to build and what are we willing to destroy to transform the condition of the race? And I think I think the public school education, it's full of disinformation, so it misguides us and it leaves us completely ignorant to culture and struggle. And I think those kind of topics that we don't see education as something that should steer us towards culture or struggle. We talk about Black August. That's teaching you the resistance to systemic white supremacy. And that's part of the educational process. And so I said in my book that what constitutes education for one group may not necessarily constitute education for one group. I started the conversation by saying that Black children need an education that affirms them and gives them confidence. White children can get that same education and it affirms them and gives them the confidence they need to go forward and succeed. And so I think those are some of the things that we need to really hone in on, this concept of teaching culture and struggle as part of the education.
Can I add something, Brother Ra?
Yeah, definitely.
I want to add this. I gave you all a quick synopsis of how I taught my kids at home and some of the benefits of that, right? They got awards, they got this and that, traveling. Nubia done been to 21 countries. She's only 35. What am I saying? Look, my father did the same for me. My father was telling me about Nat Turner and watching Brother Malcolm on 116th Street himself live, and how excited he would get and telling me the stories and telling me, about the slave resistance. And so I got it. So my point is, you can look around, do a test, look around, look at your friends, look at your relatives, look at your people you know, and then ask them to tell you about their home situations, what they were getting at home, what things they were exposed to, what things they were not exposed to, what were the conversations, what were the customs, right? And from that, you can start to say, you can start to put things together and say, these are best practices. If I want my kid not to be on drugs, my father had a ritual he did with me, man. When I was a kid, he would say, you see that guy right there? It'd be a dope addict. Big hands, scarred up face. He said, describe him. And I'd be scared to death. Look at these. They look like monsters almost. As a little kid. And I would describe, he said, do you want to look like? I said, no. He said, why? And I would explain. He said, you know why they like that? I said, no. He said, they use drugs. I said, what do you mean? He would explain it. And he did this with me all the time we were out. If we saw drug addicts, and back in the 70s in Harlem, they were everywhere. And because of him, never touched it. That was a culture he created. He said in his mind, I don't want my boy to be a drug addict, because he knew personally what that did to your body, to your mind, to your family. We have to start saying, what type of adult do I want to produce? Not just, it's my kid, it's pretty, he's cute, I'm gonna dress him up. No, what type of adult do you want to produce? Because when that kid leaves your home, guess what? They're gonna be somebody's spouse, boyfriend or girlfriend, student or teacher, employer, coworker, or business owner. They're gonna belong to the community. So it ain't just your kid. That child belongs to the community. What will they be? A community asset, a community asshole, or community predator, right? And once you decide this is how I want them to be, now you can start researching, putting things in place to create the culture. You may not know where to start, but I don't want them doing this. I want them to do this. I want them to appreciate this. So you start modeling those things. And now guess what? The parent and the child get better together, because the parent might change their eating habits because they want their child to be healthy. The parent might stop doing things they're doing, right? So it helps the whole village, but we have to take that a lot more seriously than we do. We can't, that's just music. That's just, nah. In ancient Africa, they had places that gave, I don't know, I'm not going to say this correctly, but they used the science and frequency of sound to heal people.
That's right.
So don't tell me that music is just music. Like, music has frequencies, and some music can calm you down, and some music can make you want to go murk somebody. Anybody know what I'm talking about?
It's real talk.
So we have to have better understanding of things, and then we have to say, ask questions. What type of human being do I want to create? That even if they disagree with somebody else, they know how to resolve things without the yelling, the cursing, the threats, the pulling out weapons, So if that's what you want, that means you got to now what? Start teaching conflict mediation skills, nonviolent conflict mediation. proper communication skills. You want somebody that knows how to express him or herself, they got to know how to write. You got to know how to speak to people. Emotional intelligence, all of these things. And Brother Ra, I know we're ending. All I want to say is we have the power. Whether parent listening or watching, whether you went to school, well, I don't care if you dropped out in first grade, you have the power to envision the type of kid or adult you want to produce. You see things in your kid you don't like, you got the power to research and find out what causes that and to reverse that now. So I don't want no one here watching to feel helpless. Well, I'm not a teacher. I don't have a degree. It don't matter.
That's right.
You can find out and you can put things in play. You create the culture in your home. You decide what people eat. You decide when people go to bed. You decide the activities they can do. So we have a lot of power, parents, that I want us to utilize. But the next generations, how they act, react, what they build, what they destroy, is largely in your hands. You have the ability.
That's right. Yeah, and parents, I think, need to do a better job at stepping up. But
sure.
I'm not going to ask a question now. I'll put it on the table for next time. Brother Ajay, as an educator, how do you convince the parents to not let the children watch television, not let them eat hot fries and get up in the morning and just go to school without eating breakfast? How do you convince the parents that they need to get involved? That's rhetorical. That's for next time. I want you to oh, and also I want to dial it back a minute. You mentioned heroin, and you saw this coming up as a small child. Much like how crack was dropped off in the Black community in the 80s, heroin was put in the Black community in the late 60s to put down the Black Power movement. That's another conversation for another day. But either way, Brother Ajay, you had first of all, I want everybody watching this, go to Harlem Liberation School and like the channel, subscribe to the channel. Brother Ajay is a college-educated, African-centered educator. This is not just a talking head on YouTube that's just on here saying stuff that sounds good. He actually has a background. Because I get that sometimes, Brother Ajay. Well, who are you and who is this person? And what makes them an expert? Right, Brother Ajay came this close to getting a degree in sociology, in addition to the degree that he did get to be a classroom educator. So that to say, this
I have a degree. I have a degree in sociology, bro.
Oh, you have it. Oh, see,
I have a bachelor's. My bachelor's degree is in sociology.
Oh, see that, and that's even more reason for people to pay attention and listen and share this video with other people that you know that are parents and they have small children. Brother Ajay, Harlem Liberation School is a channel on YouTube. What is I think it was payhip.com/Wukusu products. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I put it in the studio chat. It's it's payhip.com/Wukusu products that's for the online, the ebooks.
Okay, and what can you tell us quickly about the ebooks?
The ebooks are an extension of I have the traditional books. These books are more empowerment related, and there's some that target young people. There's some that target our adults, but they're all about how to be better and do better and think better, all of them. Okay. So this one might be affirmations. This one might be for Gen Z to develop certain qualities. This one may be to get out of a rut. You're stuck, how to get unstuck. But they're kind of dealing in that empowerment realm, and they're all anywhere from free. There's 3 or 4 of them that are free. There's some that's $7.50, and there's a few that's $10. So they're all inexpensive.
Yeah, and people trust me when I say this is solid, life-changing information. I know because I read the first book. I got to get online and get the rest. But go to payhip.com/Wukusu products. I put that in the chat. And Wukusu is spelled WUCUSU products. Payhip.com/Wukusu products. And also, you got to search his name to get some of the actual physical books. Ajay Tyemba. This is a good one here. And again, I can wax poetic and go on and on about how great your books are. But right now, I want to send everybody to Harlem Liberation School on YouTube and payhip.com/Wukusu products. I put that in the chat. Get some of this information so that we could be better. You know, we just came off of Black August. We talked about Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey said, up you mighty race. You can accomplish what you will. But,
that's right.
Yeah, right. Yes. And before we change the system, we're going to have to change ourselves first for the better.
That's right. That's right, brother. And one last thing. I'm sorry, Ra.
Yeah, go ahead.
Also, family, I'm at the age of 57. I have pivoted my career. I've done the classroom teaching, the disciplining of the kids, the writing curriculums, and building school. I'm now moving to work on our adults. We need help. We need work.
Nice.
We
Nice.
need to admit when we're wrong. We need to be more emotionally in tune with others. We need to be more motivated. We need to believe in ourselves. So I've also now gone into a new phase of empowerment coaching. And my whole goal is to help you be better and do better. Not telling you nothing to do, but bringing out from you the things you say you want to do and helping you come up with a plan to achieve those things. So
Nice.
you can also hit me up for those services as well.
Yeah, and you on social media? You want to give that up?
Yeah, they can email me. They can call me at 872-222-6764 or blackcoach@proton.me as an email.
Yeah, get that brother.
And that's BLK, not BLAK.
Okay. Get that brother AJ. I want to thank everybody that joined us in the chat. T. Sukari Finley, Cheryl Hudat.
Oh man, that's Queen. That's Queen Mother Sukari.
Okay.
That's the wife of Qatari Golden.
Okay.
Black August.
Wow.
That ain't no. That's Queen Mother. She's very supportive.
Okay.
Queen Sukari, thank you for always being so supportive and for all your contributions. Or not just your husband's, or your contributions. Thank you very, very much in gratitude to you.
Yeah, important. And Thuz Ladum joined us in the chat. Brother Ajay, it's always good. I feel like we can go on for hours, but we're going to cut it short here. And we will look forward to speaking to you again next month, bro.
Sounds good, brother.
All right, brother.
Peace and Black Power.
Peace.